No. No.
Sometimes our thoughts
Hush up.
untwisting the twisted that sin and pain created inside of
Hey
us.
guys, I have been a very busy lady as per usual, going to multiple different cities for my work as a essentially travel nurse. I'm a regional nurse. Going to a lot of different hotel rooms and continuing to work on my novel no matter where I go. Sometimes that even includes in the car as a passenger when my husband is driving to different cities. It's all about plugging away at it. My current strategy is to bribe myself. More on that later. But for now, I want to talk about one aspect of writing which has been really helpful to me. And that is the one-word question, why?
Untwisting
Go on now.
the twisted
Get down there.
that
Get down there.
that
What? What? Baby. Plot writing used to be very difficult for me. It was by far my weakest attribute as a writer. And my second worst was dialogue. Something happened 2 or 3 years ago when I started writing again after almost 20 years of really not writing at all. I sat down and started writing, and suddenly I could plot and I could write dialogue. My explanation is that God gave those skills to me because He wants me to write these books. I just don't have any better reason for it. I didn't work at it. I didn't study it. I didn't read 1,000 books. I haven't even read a full book, start to finish, on how to be a good writer, although I'm not proud of that. But suddenly, it was just easy to think of plots. And now I'm getting into plots that are more difficult, twisted, with surprises and cliffhangers and secrets. But not all of that is just me doing nothing and God writing the book through my fingers as I take a nap. I'm having to engage. I'm having to work at it. I'm having to think about it and struggle through it and get through the parts that don't make sense. And I am planning on reading those books and learning from the masters. But right now I'm just trying to get all of my thoughts onto paper and to get them organized. So now that I have the big story pretty much figured out, not completely, but pretty much, now I'm starting to look at each individual character's storyline and just focus on their storyline from the start of the series to the end of the series. I'm looking at their motivations, I'm looking at their struggles, and I'm looking at their character arc because I have learned about character arcs. So one of the best tools that I have for this is the question why. So a very simple example of this is I have a character who is being blessed in her life by God, but she won't piece together until she looks back the fact that it was actually God's hand in her life through a series of events. She won't recognize his signature on it until later on. But one of the gifts that she receives through him is done through a lady who I'm currently calling Gardner. I'll probably choose a pretty flower name for her because she gardens. That is what she does. But Gardner needs a place to stay, and she's allowed to stay in Zuri's house, a lady named Zuri. And while she's living with Zuri, she just makes a beautiful landscape out of Zuri's property just because that's what Gardner naturally does. It's as natural as breathing to her. So her home being landscaped came through this relationship she has with Gardner. So the why question here is, why does Gardner have to move in with Zuri? What happens to wherever Gardner was living before? What was the causal event that forced that move to happen? As a writer, you have a few options regarding the question why. One option is you can choose just not to identify that there is an unanswered why. You can choose not to identify or highlight the fact that there is a question that is not answered. So this leaves us with something that happens without an explanation. This is most appropriate when the detail or the answer to that question is going to take the reader off track. It's information that's not needed. It's not helpful to the story, and it's distracting to even identify or make the reader think about that unimportant information. When you omit reasons for something, though, hopefully what you're omitting is not something that would be relevant to the story or make the story make more sense. So option one is you can ignore it, just not even give any kind of explanation for something. Option two is you can give a simple answer to the question why. We don't want people magically showing up to live at someone's house, for example, just because it's going to fill in a hole later on in the story. We also need that person to have some kind of reason, even if it's one paragraph long, explaining why they had to move from where they were. So in my previous example, maybe rent prices went up where they were staying, or they didn't want to have such a long commute, or they decided there was safety in numbers and they didn't want to live alone anymore. Some kind of explanation which can make sense. Option three is you can give a reason that adds to the story. It makes the story more meaningful. So maybe this is in the theme of the whole book. Maybe it is part of that character's character arc. Maybe it is a hint, a clue, an indication of the bad guy coming closer. And this is an opportunity to make the question why give added richness and depth to the story. The cool thing is that the whys build on each other, just like the picture in my thumbnail. Whys beget whys. So in the example of Zuri and Gardner, that whole arrangement of Zuri receiving blessings that she would later look back on and recognize as being a string of blessings in her life. That whole storyline came from a different why, which was when she comes to the point where she's considering her faith, what is her answer going to be, and why is she going to answer that way? What would make her answer in a certain way? Then I had to answer that why, and part of the answer was this storyline of Gardner being at her house, and then that led to the why of why is Gardner at her house. So the whys become becauses, which become plot points. I have some other thoughts on why, but I will leave that until my next vlog. For now, I'm going to show you some clips of what I've been up to since the last video. A lot of the same, working in our greenhouse, doing some outside projects, going to the beach.
Taylor's about to die.